Congressman Jordan, quickly before we get into what may happen when we win and you're head of judiciary, just for people to focus on November 8th and to make sure we get the biggest majority possible in the House, what is your recommendation right now? What should people be doing? This is the biggest activist audience in media. What should the activists be doing right now to make sure we win as many seats as possible?
Well, talk to anyone and everyone and tell them what this election's about. I think I've said before, it's 4 plus freedom. So the 4 issues are: we went from a secure border to no border. We went from safe streets to record crime. We went from stable prices to a 41-year high inflation rate. We went from $2 gas to $5 gas. So in addition to doing all that harm to communities, to families, to people, to our country, what else have the Democrats and Joe Biden been up to? They've been going after your First Amendment rights, your Second Amendment rights, your due process rights. They've been weaponizing the government to come after we, the people, in an unprecedented fashion. So that's what this campaign's about. This is about, do you truly want to stand up for what makes America great? And recognize this, and then I'll stop again. But recognize this, Steve. There was a survey a few weeks ago where they said 55% of Democrats don't believe America is the greatest nation ever. Now think about that. A majority of one of the major political parties in this country actually don't believe what you and I believe, what your viewers believe, which is that while not perfect, we're the greatest nation in the history of the planet. They don't believe that. And so because they don't believe it, they don't like the country, and they don't like those of us who do love the country. That's why they're weaponizing the government to come after us. All that's on the ballot in 32 days. And so if you're in one of these key states like Ohio, where we got to make sure J.D. Vance wins, or you're in Pennsylvania, you're in Georgia, you're in Wisconsin. I was up with Ron Johnson on Monday night, or Arizona. You were just talking about Blake. These key, Adam Laxalt in Nevada. Those Senate races are the most important. Talk to any friend, family member you have in those key states and make sure those senators win. I think we're going to win the House. We need help. We need to focus on that too, and not be overconfident. But those Senate races in those key states are what really matters here in 32 days.
It would really matter because I think Grassley would be head of judiciary in the Senate, and that'd be a great partner for you in the House. Okay, the Washington Times had an amazing, I think, 5,000-word piece written by Mika Solner the other day. We talked about it yesterday, but it really goes through your fight over the 16 years, and now you would be chairman of judiciary. Arguably, if not the most powerful, one of the most powerful chairmanships in the House. And it specifically said the FBI, DOJ, all of that, and impeachment would come under you. First off, walk us through, because look, I'm an Irish Catholic kid from Virginia, from a Democrat family. The FBI field officers, when I was a kid growing up in our parish, were revered. They were absolutely revered. The FBI was everything. What has happened to the FBI? What has happened to these whistleblowers coming to you? And what are you going to do about Merrick Garland and DOJ?
Well, what's happened is it's all political now, and it's all to satisfy this narrative that we saw a few weeks ago when Joe Biden stood in front of Independence Hall with fists clenched in the red background and talked about how half the country is extremists. He's called us fascists and extremists. So, well, maybe you think about it this way. So, Steve, in the last 8 weeks, think of what we have witnessed now from Joe Biden's administration, and in particular the DOJ. They've raided the home of a former president. They've taken the phone of a sitting member of Congress. They've called half the country fascists and extremists. And 2 weeks ago, they kicked in the door with 20 agents, guns drawn, and arrested a pastor in front of his wife and 7 children for something that local officials said was not a crime whatsoever. That all happened in 8 weeks. Not to mention the fact that they signed legislation to unleash 87,000 IRS agents to come after us. Not to mention all the other stuff the FBI has done. So it is all political now, focused on satisfying this narrative where Joe Biden says half the country are extremists. And we have now had, as you point out, 14 whistleblowers come to us, actually over 14 come to us and talk to us about the politics here. And it really started a year ago with the school board situation, where we know that the National School Boards Association, working ahead of time with the Justice Department, the White House, and the Department of Education, put this letter together as a pretext so Merrick Garland could issue the memorandum to target moms and dads, and the FBI could send out the email which said, put this threat tag, this designation, this label on parents you're going to investigate. We know they've investigated over 24. So that was the first whistleblower come to tell us what they were doing. And now we've had 13 since then on a number of other issues, all underscoring how political it's gotten. So, yeah, when it comes to looking at an impeachment inquiry, I think Merrick Garland is potentially there. I think Chris Wray, and then certainly what's happened on our border, where it's being done intentionally, deliberately, premeditated way. We no longer have a border. We will, I think, also potentially, and that'll be a decision that the committee will make. The Republicans on the committee, if the American people give us the majority, and a decision we will make in consultation also with our conference. But I think Merrick Garland, I think Mr. Mayorkas certainly deserves it.
Our correspondents, the Real America Voice team, is down in El Paso right now to check this processing. The laws, and we've had, Cuccinelli, we've had some experts on here, Bensman, they're saying the existing laws have been not just broken, they've just been tossed aside brazenly. So the invasion of the southern border, that would also be something that come under your purview to find out DOJ's specific responsibility in this area?
Of course. I mean, look, I always say this is not by accident. It's intentional. It's planned. It's deliberate. It's premeditated. Use whatever word you want. And remember what Biden said right from the get-go. He said, we're not going to finish the wall. We're not going to build the wall. We're going to get rid of Remain in Mexico, and no one's being deported. So if you're a migrant who wants to come to the greatest country ever, you don't fault people for wanting to come here. But when they come here, they know that they won't have to stay in Mexico. There'll be no wall to get over. And they know when they get here, they're going to be released to wherever they want to go in the country. So, of course, they're going to keep coming, and that's all deliberate. But the biggest problem with Mayorkas, and this happened in a hearing this past summer, he was in front of our committee, and I asked him a simple question. At the time, it had been reported that 42 illegal migrants who had tried to enter our country, who were encountered on our border, were on the terrorist watch list. And so I asked Secretary Mayorkas a simple question. I said, Mr. Secretary, the 42 have been reported. It's now up to 78 that we know have been encountered. But that at the time it was 42. I said, the 42 who tried to get into our country as illegal migrants who are on the terrorist watch list, what's their status? And you may remember his answer, Steve. He said, I don't know. And I'm like, what? You're the Secretary of Homeland Security in front of the committee with primary jurisdiction over the immigration law, and you come in front of us and answer that question with I don't know? So that in and of itself, I think, is reason to consider impeachment for this guy.
Look, you're known as a fighter, but you're also known as a fair man. I think this is one of the reasons that Ohio's sent you back so many times. You're a fair guy. Tough guy, but a fair guy. Merrick Garland was nominated to be on the Supreme Court. He's a federal judge for many, many years. We talk about potential impeachment, or at least your process of investigations. That's never happened in the history of the Republic. I don't think we've ever gone to an attorney general if you leave out the fiasco over Watergate. Tell me, walk me through the process. How do you even start that?
Well, I think a good case study is that very first issue where a whistleblower came to us, which is the school board situation. So again, understand what happened here, Steve. On September 29th of last year, the National School Boards Association, a left-wing political group, sends a letter to the White House. In the letter, they say, use the Patriot Act, use counterterrorism measures against parents. 5 days later, October 4th, the Attorney General of the United States issues a memorandum which does just that, sets up a process, sets up what I call a snitch line, a dedicated line of threat communication. That's the exact language from his memorandum. Sends this memorandum out to all U.S. attorneys, 101 U.S. attorneys around the country, sends it out to all these U.S. attorneys. And then 16 days later, October 20th, there is an email that goes out from the FBI to agents all over the country saying, put this designation, this threat tag on people who are reported on that snitch line and go investigate them. And we know from a whistleblower, over 24 parents have been investigated. So think about the timeline. 29th, the letter comes from a left-wing group to the White House. October 4th, there's a memorandum. October 20th, there's an email that goes out from the FBI. Ask yourself a simple question. When have you ever seen the federal government move that fast, right? But when it comes to going after folks who think like you and I, Steve, conservatives, oh my goodness, the speed and the intensity with which they did this. And the key element here is there was communication before the initial letter. We know that Mary Walton, the White House, was talking with Chip Slavin, the CEO of the School Board Association. We know the School Board Association was talking with people in the Justice Department and the Department of Education. Now, here's the key question. When we do our investigation, here's the key question. Did the folks in the White House suggest to the School Board Association for them to put in the information about targeting parents and using the Patriot Act against parents? Did they know about it? Did they encourage it? Did they say, yeah, good job, keep that in the letter? Because we all know the letter was the pretext to do what they wanted to do anyway. Now, the good news is This is what I love about our country. The good news is it backfired because we now have a governor in a blue state, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, because of that one issue. Because Terry McAuliffe and the Democrats were so stupid, they said, we're going to run a campaign where we say government, where we tell people we think government's smarter than parents. And a bunch of moms and dads said, no, you're not. And we're going to show you in a big way. And a bunch of moms got fired up, and they got more moms fired up. And the next thing you know, Glenn Youngkin wins. So that is the case study. I think you go through that and you show how political this place has become. And then all the subsequent things we've learned since then from the other 13 whistleblowers, 13 plus whistleblowers.
Congressman, only got you for a few more minutes. We know Elon Musk has been hung up on this Twitter deal because management came to him and said, "Hey, if you keep the conservatives off, if you keep Trump off, we'll cut the price and we'll close the deal." And you keep management. He said, "No way." You're going to be one of the tips of the spear of this. Big tech, as you know, particularly in the war room, we're rabidly against these oligarchs and big tech. Walk us through your leadership. Where are you going to take us on going after big tech? And I mean deconstructing these oligarchs.
Well,
Facebook,
first
Google,
of all,
Twitter, all of them.
Well, first of all, God bless Elon Musk for not agreeing to keep people off. I'm one of the few members of Congress who's actually been shadow banned by Twitter. It was 4 years ago, 2018, in the middle of all the Mueller stuff. It was Gates, Meadows, Nunes, Jordan who were shadow banned by Twitter. Only 4 people in Congress. So I'm with you. I'm going to go after. We put together a proposal where we call it transparency, accountability, and speed. Transparency, if they're coming after you, they better tell you why. Big tech, particularly when it comes to censorship. Accountability, get rid of Section 230. And this is something we think is really important. Private right of action. Let individuals who've been attacked and censored by these tech companies, let them bring a private right of action against these big tech companies. And then the third part of our plan is this speed. We think antitrust action should get to the Supreme Court in a much quicker and expedited way so they can get a decision. Now, there was a bill last week that I thought was not the answer, even though some of my colleagues supported. The vast majority of Republicans didn't, because that bill last week was going to give $140 million a year more to the Department of Justice, the same Department of Justice who's come after you, the same Department of Justice that raided the home of President Trump, the same Department of Justice who took Scott Perry's cell phone, the same Department of Justice where the Inspector General is supposed to provide independent oversight, imaged Scott Perry's cell phone, the same Department of Justice who kicked in the door of this pastor outside of Philadelphia 2 weeks ago. I thought the last thing we need to do is give them more money that they can use to further harass conservatives and people disagree with them. But we do need to go after big tech in a big way, and we plan on doing that. That's our plan that we've already laid out.
Congressman, quickly, how do people get to your campaign site, find out more about you?
You can find it online. Go to Jordan for Congress. There you go. It's right there in front of us. You can go there and find us. We appreciate. We got a lot of great people who help us and support us, and we appreciate what you do. You talk about someone who's tough and fighting a good fight, Steve. Thank you for your commitment to freedom in this great country.
It's your leadership, sir. Thank you, Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio. Thank you, sir.